Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today on the managerial skills required to handle the cross-cultural teams. We have Mr. Michael Wenani Nielsen from Denmark, working as a senior manager in LM Wind Power, who is going to address you all and impart his knowledge on the same. Now, let me take this opportunity to introduce him. May I request Nidhi to introduce Sir to everyone? Over to you, Nidhi.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this today's webinar on managerial skills required to handle cross-cultural teams. I, Nidhi, the student of GIBS, studying first year PGDM. Thank you for taking time out and being here today, sir. I welcome Lakshmi ma'am and Pradeep, sir. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Michael Wenani Nelson, sir, who is going to talk to us about the managerial skills which we should all be deeply interested in. Let's know more about Sir. Sir is the manager process developer at LM Wind Power, senior manager manufacturing engineering process development, working with a team of process design specialists on a new NTIs and NPIs at LM Wind Power. Let's know more about Sir's education. Sir has an experience of 5+ years as a people leader for talented engineers at LM Wind Power, MSc in mechanical engineering, PhD in composites, thermomechanical numerical process modeling. Research also included in situ strain, temperature, and VARTM flow monitoring techniques using embedded optical fiber sensors during composites manufacturing. External researcher at the German Aerospace Center DLR, Institute of Composite Structures and Adaptive System, Braunschweig, Germany. A previous experience with the Product Development and Engineering, Ground Force Technology Center. Sir has also been awarded with Ground Force Candidate Technology Prize in 2009 for work on development of novel sheet metal forming process. It's our pleasure to have you on the webinar, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. And first and foremost, thank you very much, Lakshmi, for the invitation to do this. We've been writing to each other back and forth about this. It's good we finally got a date, and appreciate the amount of students that I can see have joined the session. Students and people who have registered to this webinar. So I'll get straight through it. Let's make this an interactive session. I don't like speaking to myself, so if there are some questions, raise your hands, and maybe Professor Lakshmi or Nidhi, you can help direct those questions to me if I don't see the hands. And
Sure.
I understand we also have 10-15 minutes at the end of the session for some Q&A also.
Yes.
So I'll get straight through it.
Yes.
So I trust that you see the full screen presentation.
Yes, Michael, it's visible, clear.
Okay, we'll get to it. So I'll make the self-introduction very short. I think Nidhi, you made a very good job of presenting this to the people on board. My background is basically I'm born and raised in Kenya. I've lived in Denmark for the last 21 years, where I've studied and attended military service here, and also my professional life. I'm happily married, and I have 3 daughters, and we have 2 rabbits as pets here at home. I felt I needed to add that. As mentioned earlier, my background is in mechanical engineering. I've done some research work also within the field of mechanical engineering. And this has basically been the red thread through my professional career. I've been employed at LM Wind Power since 2013. We recently, 2-3 years back, was acquired by GE Renewables Energy. So we went from a fairly small global company with around 11 to 12,000 employees globally at the time, to being part of this really big conglomerate, right? With I think the number is roughly 330,000 employees globally. And this is something we have really felt in the way we work. So the session, as mentioned today, is going to handle about managerial skills required to handle cross-cultural teams. The talking points I have prepared for you is a short introduction of LM Wind Power, cross-cultural leadership at LM and GE, what that is about and how that is managed and driven, and then some personal examples and reflections which I hope you can gain from. My ambition is that after this session, that you will have a flair of what it is like to be a people leader in a multinational company. And not just a multinational company, but managing and leading skilled individuals across the globe. It'll give you an understanding of how culture is managed at a company like LM and in GE. And it'll give you some personal reflections that maybe can help you in your professional careers later on, whether it's to people you will employ and be part of your team, or whether it's the communication with your management upwards. So a little bit about the company. So LM has a global footprint, and it's one of the advantages we have. We are and have been the world's largest independent supplier of wind turbine blades for the wind industry. Part of the introduction here is something we'll also give you some reflection points later on when we're talking about cross-cultural teams. So this map of the world shows where LM facilities are situated. There's a headquarters in Kolding here in Denmark, so in Scandinavia, where I'm situated. And then there's a total of currently 13 factories globally in countries like Brazil, Canada, China, India, Poland, France, the US, Spain, and Turkey. And then I thought I'll take this one step further and personalize it a little bit. So I've put red markers on all of the countries or global locations where in the last 5 years, I've worked with people in my team from these different locations. So I think it's a total of 16 nationalities I could count. Maybe I'm missing one or two. But it's when I was preparing this, it actually gave me food for thought. We have worked with cultures from countries where our LM facilities are, but we've also worked with cultures from people who have moved from other countries where LM is not readily situated. People who have themselves had to adapt to the culture within the company. And also other cultures that they maybe themselves have not been working with in the past. So a little bit more about the company and what we do. So we are manufacturing wind turbine blades. At the bottom of the picture, you can see a long line of wind turbine blades placed outside in a yard in Canada in the middle of winter. But within the span of the company lifetime from 1978 approximately to today, in 2021, we have developed and delivered blades ranging from 7.7 meter blades in the very, very early days, all the way to the world's largest serial production blade today, which is the 107 meter blade for offshore. The numbers on the screen, for those of you who are interested, is also telling a little bit about the size. So the wind turbine on the right has a rotor diameter of 220 meters. It's generating 12 megawatts. Actually, the newest platform we'll be on will be able to generate 14 megawatts. The equivalent is energy to power 16,000 households based on European data. So these structures are humongous if you haven't seen them already. So some highlights from the company. As I mentioned, 13 blade factories globally. We are around 13 to 14,000 employees worldwide. We have produced 241,000 blades since 1978. I think in the mid-90s, the company footprint was something like 75% of blades installed globally. And some other fascinating numbers there. A total of 121 gigawatts installed capacity since 1978. And last year, we produced approximately 13,500 blades across the globe. I think the average blade length was something like 60 meters long, just to give you an idea. So our footprint also reflects the many different customers we are working with globally. Some of the names I hope you're aware of in front of you. But it means that as a company, we also need to be very customer-centric and also understand the culture of the customer, the way of doing business with the customers. This is not something that is part of my daily work, as I don't have that big interface to the customers. But there is a lot of focus on the cultural understanding of the people we're doing business with. Okay, so let's try and get to the topic. So for some days and weeks, I pondered a little bit about the title here. So managerial skills required to handle cross-cultural teams. And I thought about how is it, what is the culture within LM, related to this? And actually, something that disturbed me with this title was a bit that, okay, we actually, in the way we do work in LM, we don't talk about handling teams. So I was thinking, okay, let's try and remove that from the title. But what am I then doing? I'm a manager, but am I managing the teams? And really, I think within the last 4 to 5 years, the term management is becoming less and less used within the company. What we are trying to do in LM and in GE is to lead teams and to lead individuals and to be people leaders. So you'll often see this in the internal communications and in the internal training sessions, that handling or managing people and teams is not something that is communicated. A lot of focus is on building strong people leaders. Okay. So when I was sitting down putting a slide deck together for today's discussion, today's webinar, I did what I guess everyone in this day and age does. I jumped onto Google and I defined the word culture. So, and this is the first hit that comes from Google. 462 million hits within 0.6 seconds on the word culture. And, culture is something to do with arts and manifestations of human intellectual achievement. But I think for today's talk, it was more about, a definition of culture as the ideas, the customs, the social behavior of a particular people or society. That was a good reflection point for me to think about what culture is. And in what I'll present later on, I'd like you to think of culture within these definitions also. So in other words, culture is the characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music and habits, and arts, sorry. So it's basically all of these things melted together into one big pot is giving you the culture as characteristics of that particular group of people or that person. So it can be seen as the growth of a group identity fostered by social patterns unique to the group. Now, professionally, when we're talking about cultures, we talk about country cultures. We don't talk about inter-country cultures, and this is maybe a mistake. But I'd like you to just note that in these definitions, countries as such are not, let's say, the boundary limiting what a culture is. And it's actually quite an important point because with our personal experience in the company, we have 2 factories and 2 offices in Spain, And although the factories are something like 500-600 kilometers from each other, the cultures and the way of working with the people in those factories is actually quite different. We see the same in the two previous facilities we had in USA. One was in North Dakota, or one is in North Dakota, Grand Forks, close to the Canadian border. And another one was, unfortunately, we closed it down 2 years ago. Another one was in the southern states, in Arkansas, Little Rock. And the cultures, even though it was the same country, the working culture fostered in those two different factories was actually very, very difficult and very different. So your navigation on how to, communicate with people, how to build working relationships with those two factories was actually different. Hopefully I can give you some more insights on that later. Okay, so I'll have a mixture of some examples from my workplace just to give you an idea of how is it to be a people leader in LM and GE Renewables, and working with cross-cultural teams. So people in different countries, but also people with different cultures in similar countries. And this is something that came in my inbox, what was this, last week, so beginning of May. And it's actually a good reflection of how the company is trying to really grow a strong culture in the company. So I think a lot of you have heard this phrase before: culture eats strategy for breakfast. A person by the name of Peter Drucker, who I think coined this first. So basically what it means is that no matter how strong a strategic plan is for a company, it can be held back if employees don't share the proper culture. I have one or two examples that would show that, but think about it this way. We're all trying to play the same game. We're all trying to win in the game that we are playing. There's 300,000 employees in GE globally. It's really important that everyone is playing the same game and following the same rules, right? And in a way, this culture is basically the boundary of the rules, the way I see it at least, the boundary of the rules that are being set forward by the company for us to play that game and to understand each other and to point in the same direction. Okay. But this is just an example to show how internally in GE and LM, there's actually a lot of focus from human resources, from the communications teams to continuously foster this strong culture, and it goes hand in hand with the vision that is in the company also. So why is this cultural alignment important? So it's important because, at least at LM, we're using it to establish and drive a healthy culture within the team. It's vital to its success and employee engagement. So employee engagement is basically the assessment of how well employees are thriving within a company. Are they satisfied? Are they not satisfied? There's a lot of different metrics that is part of the employee engagement. So culture is the way we do work. It is the environment we experience and the behaviors we reinforce. So again, the analogy of we are in the same competition, or we want to win a game. The culture is the way we do work. There's some rules around how you play the game. Culture is something that is helping us in the business point of view to know what the rules are for the game. So the way we attract and retain people, share a vision, communicate, develop, manage risk, hold accountability, and provide insights. So all of these points is something that GE and LM is strongly trying to convey in the way the daily work is done. There's a clear vision that's communicated to everyone about how we do business. the communication style is also, clearly controlled. Development of our people, development of our business, how we manage risk, how we how we are developing products, how we send our employees home safely every day from the factories, how we keep ourselves accountable for the things we're responsible for. All of these things are encompassed in the way the company culture is fostered. Okay. So another point that came up. So culture is reinforced through every interaction. It is owned by everyone. So, after a short time in the company, you start to talk the same talk, you start to, strive for the same things. That is defined within this boundary of what the company culture is trying to do. Okay? So, as a people leader, in a way, you are an ambassador for the company, because it's, in a big way, it's through you that your team will share that culture, right? So you play actually a very big role in how that culture is conveyed to the people in your teams. Okay. Any questions from anyone so far? Okay, so I'll move on. So as a people leader in LM, I try to reflect a little bit upon the last 5-6 years of all the different training sessions, personal development sessions we've been through. And I think within a few minutes, I could remember a lot of these different training sessions we've been through. So the cultural awareness training has been a general topic that came later on. Unfortunately, in my reflection, I could see that if we would be much stronger at it, and if we offered cultural awareness training for even the young engineers that we hired, and not only for the leaders and the managers that were getting leadership training. Coming straight from university, starting in a multinational company, it's not something that you actually take very seriously. But reflecting across the years, I think this is something that I would urge you to request your companies, to give you some indication of whether you can get a stronger cultural awareness, either through some training or something that you go for yourself. So I'll just list the different tools here. So there's a situational leadership model. There's the JBTI, the MBTI, so the Myers-Briggs type indicator. I think some of you maybe have seen this before. Disc analysis is widely used. Something known as the cultural compass. And I think if you Google the cultural compass, you'd see there's very many different consultants out there offering dedicated training sessions on cultural compass. Whether it's called cultural compass or cultural awareness, I think it's in a way it's a lot of the same things. In terms of profiling, people profiling, the disc analysis, the MBTI, the Johari window, a lot of those actually go hand in hand, and in a way, I would say they overlap each other. I think a year or two back, we attended something known as Leader as Coach. So again, this is an example where GE is trying to go away from the sense of a manager being someone who's managing people, but trying to really foster a culture of being a leader, and a leader that can help people complete the tasks or resolve some of the issues that they're faced with in their daily working life. So then I then took a step back and reflected a little bit. So what is the common takeaway from all of these? It's maybe hard to say with one word, but I felt a lot of these training sessions, a lot of these tools have helped me understand how people are thinking, understand, to be aware of reflecting on the motives behind the way individuals are responding to, let's say, criticism or responding to a request at work. What makes someone think or react the way that they do? So this way of having some reflection over other people's actions and comments is actually is a good way of putting yourself into their situation, trying to understand what is it actually that is important for that individual, and especially when you're having cross-cultural teams. Something that is necessarily important for you is not important from someone in China or Poland or Spain. Okay. So the common takeaway, just to say that one more time, the common takeaway is that these are all good tools to help you reflect in a structured way and understand people. Leader as coach is maybe standing a little bit alone in this sense, because it's a full package encompassing a lot of these things in how to be a coach. Okay. So one thing I want to spend some time on is this cultural compass or cultural comparisons. So what you see in front of you is one particular model that I've been exposed to. It's how to rate or compare different cultures in 6 dimensions. So you see the graph on the right is showing what an estimated cultural score is for India. Based on the 6 matrix that you have there. So power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. I'll not jump into all of them, but I'll give you a flair about what this kind of cultural compass or cultural comparison tool can help you with. This particular model is from a site known as Hofstede Insights. I shared with you the link there at the bottom of the screen. So the very first thing I did was I typed in India, and when you just look at the graph on its own, it doesn't really tell you much. And it's an important point about this tool is that you should use it as an estimate, as a comparative guideline. It means that the tool is only as strong as when you're actually doing a comparison. So just looking at one country on its own and not having a reference point is not going to help you really with this. A lot more about that is very well described in the link that is there at the bottom. So let's try and make this a little bit more interactive. So examples from my workplace. I'm seated here in Denmark. My father is Danish. My mother is Kenyan. Collaborating a lot with very good colleagues and good friends in India. So I thought, let's try and do a cultural comparison of Denmark and India. Again, the same 6 metrics. Denmark is the blue graph, the blue bar charts, and India is the purple bar charts. And again, these are just their estimates, because you cannot, India is a huge, huge country. Many different states, long from north to south, east to west, many different religions. So again, it's an average estimate representative of India. Okay, again, use it as a rough guideline when you're doing comparisons. So from examples from my workplace. So for instance, power distance. I think this is a nice one to talk about. Power distance. So it's defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions or organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. So you could say, how much do you accept that, okay, we have the hierarchy, we have the CEO, the president, the boss, whatever they say must be right. As an employee, I just have to accept that. I shouldn't really even question it. As part of my culture, I don't question it. I just accept it. So if you have a very high score, you how can I say this? You accept that there's a power inequality. If you have a low score, you coming from a culture where you don't, accept that, where maybe organizations, you could say, are much more flat. Hierarchy is not as important. So a low power distance score also reflects itself on some of the other metrics. So if you look at the one called individualism versus the power distance, power distance is a very low score for Denmark. So, in a way, if the police stops you in Denmark, you are not afraid of going to jail. You have a dialogue with them. You of course respect authority, but you're not afraid of authority, right? But if you look at the individualism score, it's actually quite high. So people are more individualistic, even though it's, in a way, it's the foundations of Denmark are a socialistic state from the 60s and 70s politicians. But people in many ways are more focused about what they get out of it themselves, as opposed to what we as a small community or as a team maybe get out of it. And there you can see the scoring on individualism for India is slightly lower. Okay. In terms of power distance, my personal reflection and some examples is that where the power distance score is high, so in cultures, in countries, in regions where the power distance scoring is quite high, yes, when you're asking an employee to work on a task, or when you feel that you've agreed on a task and the employee says yes, you actually need to question yourself whether yes actually means yes. So is that individual just saying yes because they are accepting that you are let's say you are the boss in quotations, and that everything you say is correct? Or do they actually say yes because they see it 100% in the same way that you do? And it's something you really need to be aware of, because it can lead to delays, it can lead to misunderstandings, miscommunication, if you're not aware of the nuances in how a colleague in China versus a colleague in Brazil would attack the same task that you're requesting them to do. Okay. The power distance scoring there is also sometimes a little bit troublesome, because at least at LM&IG, we want to make work meaningful for people. We want people to really, employees and teams, to really understand why it's important to do what we are doing. What is the connection to the business strategy? And if they don't understand that, then it's the effort they put into the work is not going to be the same. If your boss is asking you to do something that you don't at all feel is meaningful, then it'll be very, very difficult for you to have the motivation to do the work, right? But if you can understand that, okay, by doing this task, it's helping us meet our targets on selling a certain number of blades to a certain number of projects in a region where we can really drive green energy forward. There's a bigger picture, and as a people leader, if you can connect the dots and make the understanding of what the individual priorities are, I think you'd normally come out better at the end. Just to reflect a little bit on the graph, masculinity, I think that's how you say it, right? Masculinity, you can see the masculinity scoring is a little bit the same as the power distance scoring, although it's actually related to totally different things. Masculinity reflects that there's a culture driven by much more competition. In India, there's a lot of competition, right? There's a lot of bright talents gunning for the same jobs. While in Denmark, due to the environment we are in, the competition as such is not as strong. You'd actually see, in terms of the masculinity rating for a country like USA, theirs is slightly higher than India's, if I recall the graph. Although the power distance is actually lower. So there's some nuances. Use these simply as guidelines. Okay, so what is the takeaway from this? If you are starting in a new job, if you are starting to do business with a new country, a new culture, I think you will stand much stronger if you do a little bit of homework, if you do a little bit of investigations on trying to understand, what is the foundations of that culture, what are the nuances. Use this as a tool. There are many other tools out there where you can compare cultures. There's a lot of cartoon sketches showing some differences. There's a lot of podcasts out there that you can also indulge yourself in. But I always try to find something I can read in the plane or on a flight to a new country that will help me understand more about the place I'm going to, right? Help yourself understand the culture that you're going to visit or you're going to work with. This is just one of the tools that I recommend that you give it a try on. Okay, so 40 minutes gone, Lakshmi. We still have roughly 5 more minutes for the presentation. It's okay?
Yeah, you can take a little more time also, should not be a problem.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try and have 1 or 2 examples for you. I hope it will reflect a little bit upon what I just mentioned. So one of the very first projects I was involved in when I started in LM as a senior engineer was the deployment of a new technology. So it's something called an iWeb. It's a structure that we put into the blades, and the task that I was given was to, together with another colleague, to deploy this new technology in all the different facilities we have globally. So basically tell them that the way that they have been building the webs previously is no longer what we're going to do. We're going to be doing something new going forward. And it's an example where the poor cultural awareness that I had at the time resulted in lost productivity, delays, frustrations. It actually resulted in some relationships, working relationships I had with individuals that took a long time to improve again. All in all, for the company, it resulted in an impact in our profitability. Okay, we were delayed on projects. We did not deliver what we promised to our customers, and we spent a lot of time and hours to repair defects, to get the quality that we had promised the customer. The reason for this is because we thought that, okay, we have a new design, we have a new structure we want to roll out. We basically set up 1 or 2 meetings with all of the plants and tell them that these are the new documents you need to follow. This is how you need to do it, and everything would be okay. And what we saw was that some countries straight away took the ball and ran with it. They took the information that we had shared with them and they made it work. But other countries, for instance, the factories in the US, our factory in Brazil, especially our own factory here in Denmark, they really pushed very, very hard against us. They did not accept that we were coming from global engineering and just introducing something new. Okay, so it's an example where some factories accepted the change, and other factories did not accept the change. And it took us some time before we found out that, okay, we need to make people understand why it's important. Why is it important that we're asking them to build something that is more difficult to build than what they were building before? And then why at the same time are we then telling them that the quality of what they're building is not good enough? So we went back to the drawing board, so to speak. We put together a communication package with training information, with backgrounds on why we're doing what we're doing, really make it more meaningful for the people that we needed to, to produce these components, to understand why they were doing what they were doing. And after doing that, we saw more progress, and we saw less barriers. Okay. Now, if I had a stronger cultural awareness at the time, I would have maybe attacked this task in a different way. Okay. So this is one example. Not necessarily something to do with the teams, but again, it reflects a little bit on having a cultural awareness before you try and do business with people from other regions, other countries, other backgrounds. Okay. Okay. In a way, COVID-19 has been a big part of our daily life. Lakshmi, I see you're sitting at home. I'm also in my home office. A lot of you are maybe getting very, very tired of being at home, but that's just the reality of it. So I think it's only fair that we talk a little bit about what does it mean to work with the, cross-cultural teams that are working remotely, sitting at home. We've been doing this for over a year now, and what are my personal reflections? And actually, one podcast I can strongly advise is there's two Dutchmen who have made this podcast. I think collectively they have lived and worked in, I think they mentioned something like 11 countries. One is married to a South American. The other one was actually married to an Indian from Kolkata. And they worked for KLM, which is the Dutch airline service. And they have very good anecdotes and very many examples of the impact that culture has on doing business internationally. I strongly recommend that one for you. It's a good one if you're sitting in the car or in the bus. So what are my reflections from the last 1 year? Really, when skilled, talented individuals that are working for you, working in your team, are forced to work remotely. In a way, it requires trust from your side, and it requires that there's clear expectations to what is expected of them. I'll get into that a little bit. So just one or two points regarding that. One thing you definitely need to try and do is to avoid micromanagement. Gone are the days where it's expected that people are at the office at 7:30 sharp and that they leave the office at 5:30 sharp. Many different cultures are no longer, following that. Working remotely, it simply requires that there is some flexibility there. As a people leader, you need to acknowledge that, and you make it clear to your team what your expectations are for it. Social isolation is something that, as a people leader with cross-cultural team members, you have to actually think a little bit about. Differences globally are there. In India, in China, culturally, you are taking care of your elderly. You are living in bigger families. In some of the more individualistic cultures, like Northern Scandinavia, Canada, people are more isolated. And when, as human beings, we are social animals, right? We get energy from being together. We learn from each other. And when you're in this situation for a year now, where you are kind of isolated, as a people leader, you have to think about the countries where that isolation is even higher than countries where people have big families, and keep closer contact to the people in those countries, because mental health, stress, these are syndromes that you're hearing more and more about people struggling with, right? Working from home, if you don't have a house full of children and grandparents and cats and dogs and things to keep you busy, you would just extend the number of hours you spend in front of the computer. And that, after a couple of months, that gets to you. So this, as a people leader, this is something you need to think about. Now, the first point I mentioned about trust and clear expectations, it goes together with the online presence. There's this notion that if I don't see you, that means you aren't working. You know, if I don't see that you are online at 8 o'clock sharp, then it means that you're not working. I think you need to. This is not how the world is anymore. Okay, if you have highly talented people in your team, you need to trust that when you've given them a task, that they will deliver on it. Okay, and again, be very clear on what your expectations are. So I have 3 slides, and then we're open for some Q&A. I try to boil it down to 3 takeaways, what I've talked about. So number 1, working in multicultural and multinational teams is fun. It's very insightful if you agree to embrace it. Open up your arms and embrace the differences. You know, be curious, ask questions, learn the language, explore what your common differences are. It makes it much more fun to lead people from different backgrounds. Everyone gains from it. Everyone learns from it. So if you are in that situation, you know, embrace it and just go with the flow. Number 2, when starting at a new workplace, make an effort to understand the culture. Okay? The culture of the company, the culture of the team you are in, the culture of the department you're part of, because as a people leader, you are an ambassador for the culture that's being conveyed down to your team. You know, your team will look to you and reflect upon you. We've had examples at LM where, you know, 2 vice presidents were simply not collaborative enough. And with years, you could actually see that entire departments of people under these 2 vice presidents were having issues in projects and collaboration. Okay, so as a people leader, you need to be aware of this. If you don't all play the game following the same ground rules, then nobody can win or succeed. Okay, so and the third point I'll leave you with. As a people leader, you're a key vehicle to reflect the company culture within your team. The example I gave you before was actually for this last takeaway. Okay, be very careful not to start a culture that is not supportive of the work that you're doing. Be careful when not to badmouth other team leaders. A lot of your own personal opinions is not something necessarily you need to influence the culture of your team with by, you know, making it very clear to them. So and again, is the example with these 2 vice presidents that, you know, everyone in the company knew that these 2 guys, even though they were not from the same, they were from the same country but different regions, they simply couldn't work together. And all the teams below them, in a way, suffered because of that. Okay? So company values, culture are a strong tool to help mediate and resolve conflicts and give direction. So this is actually it's a good point. If you're in a situation where there are differences between people, there are conflicts, you know, going back to the company value and company culture is a way that you can help resolve that, right? Because otherwise you're going to have a hard time being the referee on these kind of things. Okay, and I think that was it from me today. Professor Lakshmi, are you still there?
Yes. It was really great and very interesting to listen to you. Michael, thank you so much. I think we can take a couple of questions now.
Yes.
Let me go one by one. How do language barriers help to unify the organization culture? There's a person by name Jai Kumar who's asked this question.
How the language barriers help to unify the organizational culture? Language barriers is I don't think they unify the organizational culture. I think it's something that can give some frustrations. But you know, maybe what I can say, some examples of what you can do to work against these language barriers so that everyone still gets something out of it is use the tools that are at your fingertips. You know, if you can't explain it with your words, show it with pictures, show it with a video, draw it, sketch it. That there's many ways to communicate these days. So in a way, if you have if you have a team that where maybe language barriers are there, you know, English communication is maybe not the strong suit of some of the team, then be ready to use other tools and techniques to get the message out. I also sometimes connect with other colleagues, you know, to just try and understand. Okay, you know, so and so was trying to explain this the other day. I don't really understand why he or she, you know, took it in a bad way that we discussed this. And then maybe that person also has some experience from that culture or is from that area, and they can open up to you. It's not always easy for your own employees to do this. Jaya Kumar, I hope that answers what you were trying to ask.
All right, thank you so much. We have another question from Mohan Kumar. How was your journey in adapting to Denmark culture? Please share a few examples from cultural adoption point of view.
Okay, that's a good one. So I lived in Kenya 17, 18 years before moving to Denmark. Luckily, my dad is Danish, so you know, we visited Denmark many times in my childhood. But I'll maybe give you an example about where I did not prepare my wife for the culture of my family when, you know, introducing her. It's also a reflection point there. You know, I thought, okay, my dad is Danish, my mom is Kenyan. You know, my mom maybe has the same understanding of the Danish culture. But times change, so cultures can also change with time. It was a shock for her coming to Kenya, where maybe the male and female roles are a little bit different to what we're used to here in Denmark. But my adaptation to Denmark, the culture in Denmark was actually very, very easy. I went to high school up here, I went to the military, and when starting work, it was easy for me to adapt to the Danish colleagues. My background in Kenya, there's a big Indian community in East Africa. There's a big British community in East Africa. So I was also exposed to many different people. I think in a way that will help you expose yourself to different cultures, to different music, different films, different, you know, and then you'll always find something you can connect on, right? We also played rugby, hockey, cricket in Kenya. So I know whenever I talk to my colleague called Sachin, I can call him Sachin Tendulkar, right? I know in India that guy was a star. Already there, then we have a small connection, and then it's easy to go to the more difficult points to talk about. Any other questions?
Yes. I think the questions are pouring. We'll take a few more. There's another question by Tanya. She's asking, how still we are not understanding the culture. I mean, you know, till the time we understand the culture about the organization, how do we manage ourselves? That's the question, I suppose.
This is the question here, right? How do we manage till we are understanding
the culture? Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. You need to be curious. You need to be open, and you need to make, you know, get the same expectations from your team. So I guess, Tanya, what you're implying is that if you start in a new company and it takes time for you to understand the culture, how do you manage until you have understood the culture?
Right. Yes, you're right. That's the question.
again, make the connection. Make the connection with the people you're working with. Try and spend some minutes every time you're having a meeting with each other to just follow up on what the situation is like in the respective countries that person you're working with is. But in terms of company culture, most companies have an employee introduction where the company values are communicated. The company values are normally a very strong foundation of the culture that is in that company. So try and understand those values. If they're not clear to you, talk to your people leader, your direct manager, and say, okay, what are some of the values of our department, right? That should help you grow some idea of the culture that you're being part of.
All right. I mean, I think we'll take another one or two questions more. Are there any tools? Another question from Dr. Shanti. She's asking, what will be the tools to enhance cross-cultural awareness in an organization, or measures for that matter?
Yeah, so I'll just go back to one of the slides I had with, sorry, many points here. Yeah, really for cross-cultural awareness, the ones I can strongly recommend is the cultural compass, the cultural comparative tool I told you about. Maybe that is more like on a business standpoint, but it doesn't have to be so formal, to be honest, right? My wife and I, we watch movies from Bollywood. We love Indian cuisine. We listen to a little bit of Indian music here and there. Just try and understand more about the region or the country of where that colleague or that person is from. So there's podcasts. There's everything is at our fingertips these days. So just do a search and you'll see many things out there. But really, cultural compass. This one here. If you search cultural compass, there's a lot of different things out there. And then the cultural comparative tool that I showed on the next page. This one here.
Yes. Go ahead. Is there anything else to be shared with?
No, that's what I could think about.
Yes.
I think we can take one more question.
One more question. Yes, actually, you could see the Q&A. The questions are actually pouring right now. There are so many questions. I will take one last question. What would be the best path to pursue cross-cultural studies? What impact does it shows on HR manager?
So if I understand the question correctly, Supriya, you are asking which is the best direction to get the cross-cultural studies. I don't understand the last part. What impact does it show on HR manager?
Okay. Let me see if I can allow her to talk, if she's there, so that she can put across her question. Supriya?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, so my question is about being a senior HR leader. If I want to be a people leader, so if I need to manage the conflict, or if I want to understand the cross culture between the Indian employee and if I'm reporting to the foreign, so how can I manage, and what cross culture study I need to make over before becoming that? What can I do on it is my question.
So as in one side of understanding individuals is the profiling, okay? Regardless of culture, people's personal preferences is sometimes also more of the programming that is in you, forcing you to react in a way that you do. So the JBTI, the MBTI tool, the DISC analysis, those are really good for personal profiling. 2-3 years ago, when I got my first, no, actually, sorry, 5 years ago, when I got my first team, one of the very first things I did was I asked HR to facilitate an MBTI session, where we agreed across the team that the intention was to understand the different profiles, understand why someone would react in one way compared to another way. Are you introvert, extrovert? Are you judgmental? Are you someone who likes more structure in the way you work compared to someone who just goes with the flow and finds his or her own way? It was actually a very good. It was a very good task to do, or a very good exercise to do, because for me as a people leader, I understood, okay, this individual likes work structured in this way. This individual is maybe more open to new tasks, maybe more open to a more dynamic, way of working. This one here wants a fixed plan for the next 5-6 months, because then it's clear to them what they need to do, which target they need to hit. So those personal preference tools for profiling were actually quite good. We no longer do them at LM and GE. We used to do them previously as part of the employee onboarding, especially if we're looking for some very specific profiles for a very specific job. We don't do that anymore. But as a people leader, if your team allows you to, if they're okay with it, then I think it's a good way of really connecting the team, making people understand how each other think. That is one of the ways I would do that if I'm taking over a new team that I've not worked with before. I recently, 1st of January, took on another new team in a totally new role. Some of them I have worked with before and were colleagues previously, and others I didn't. I spent a lot of time in the beginning of that to really understand what is their personal development plan, what's their background. If you yourself have not been there hiring and onboarding those individuals, then it's a good idea to just touch upon where they came from and why are they at LM, why are they doing what they're doing now with us, and understand, okay, where do they want to be in 1, 2, 3, 5 years time. That reflection there is also going to give you a good understanding of what they are.
Yes, it was a good answer. I clearly understood now. And one more question, the last question I want to go. Is there any impact of emerging technology like AI coming over, and is it affecting the culture right now, or remotely working? Is it showing any impact or any effect on the fragile cultural awareness what people can get?
I say use of Zoom and Teams and things like this. There's a meeting culture that is normally something that is driven in the company. We hear people coming from other companies saying, "Oh, okay, you're very, very punctual at LM. At 1 minute past 12, everyone is in the meeting, right?" Where they came from, it was okay to jump into a meeting 10-15 minutes late, for instance. So as a company, it's not something that is enforced, like the email culture, the meeting culture, how to use the technology there. It's not something that's really enforced. Once in a while, some training sessions would come to help you, work more efficiently with this. If you're in a company where you have the ability to request such a session, like for more efficient email communication, or how to have a strong culture around meetings. For instance, when the meeting is finished at 1:30, you finish at 1:30, right? You don't go half an hour over. Things like this is something that you can agree upon individually with your teams, but also, try and force others to also commit to. In terms of artificial intelligence, I don't really see that impact on cultures. I see the impact on efficiency in how we're doing work, but as such, not in cross-cultural communication and collaboration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It's really pleasure being in your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it, and I appreciate all the questions. If
We since time is a constraint, we are not really having enough time to address all the questions. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I think you can get in touch with him on the email ID that's been mentioned so that he can answer. I hope Michael, you'll oblige and answer their queries if at all, if they have any, if they mail you across.
I'll try my best to do that. Lakshmi, I'll share the presentation with you. There's a lot of good links there.
Sure.
Some things you can, with a simple Google search, you can find what you're hopefully looking for.
Yeah. I'll do that. Thank you so much. And now, may I request Nidhi to propose the vote of thanks for the day?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. I extend a very hearty thanks to Mr. Michael sir, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace this webinar. Thank you, sir. GIBS, a platform which organizes various webinars, allows for better interaction between the students and the professors, as it brings all students on an equal footing. These webinars conducted by GIBS is where it is increasing the choice of courses we have. With the webinars, students can take extra courses. It is also helping us to broaden our skills as well as the field of our interest. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Michael.
for that, Nidhi. Thank you so much. My heartfelt gratitude and thanks to you, Michael, for really accepting the invitation, and really thanks for such an interactive and a wonderful webinar that we had today. I myself personally learned a lot about the cross cultural teams. I mean, how do you effectively handle them, and what should be your role? How do you have you got to prepare yourself, or doing what would lead to things happen rightly. Thank you so much for your time. I thank again from the management and the college end. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, everyone, and stay safe, and hope the COVID situation gets better in India.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. I would request all the participants to stay back and get the more information about our college through this video. And participants will get your certificates by Tuesday. And we do have another panel discussion coming up on 25th on design thinking. Would request all of you to be to kindly a part of the same, and make the webinar panel discussion more successful. Thanks again, Michael. And now we will see more about our college through this video. Thanks, Neha, for coordinating.